안녕하세요. 오늘 이 자리에서
Well, now, first of all,
Web3의 상황, 제가 보는 SKT가 보는 상황과
I would like to give you my view, my company's view on Web3 and also the preparation so far by SKT on Web3. So this would also involve digital transformation, digital economy, and AI. So let me also try to explain by linking all those components together. Now first, I would like to go through the digital economy and Web3, followed by the current state of Web3, meaning where we are now. And then we are calling this the crypto winter. Of course, we are passing it through, but then what can be the triggers for market turnaround at a time like this? And then for the Web3 ecosystem, now out of the overall picture, then what are the positions of Web3 wallets and the apps? Now, of course, we cannot just stop at Web3 because all over the world and also in Korea, AI is a hot topic. So now let us also look at the potential role of generative AI in Web3. And last but not least, again, SKT's readiness, what we are doing to future-proof ourselves. Now these images, now this is 2012 and then 2028 and EU 27 countries, and high above is the US. So the EU and the US, you see the GDP gap used to be about $2 trillion. So that was in 2012. But then now in 2028, the gap is going to be bigger than $10 trillion. And now this image, the France and Germany and the UK GDP would be similar to that of one state in the US. Then also the national total value of the exchange, then you can see that the US is at $41 trillion, but then the UK, France, Germany, they are hovering around $2-3 trillion. Now, what are the reasons? Of course, there would be various reasons. For example, employment flexibility, good schools, so they could be some of the reasons, but then I would like to focus on some other factors. So for example, among the top 30 companies in terms of market cap, then there are 21 US companies. You see Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, and then some of them existed in 2000, some of them did not. Now what I mean by this is that we talk about digital economy, digital transformation, but major economies like the US and Europe, then we can see that with the emergence of big techs, they are seeing the gap grow larger and larger. And then now looking at Korea, about the Korean digital transformation and overseas presence. And then now, this is about the government's plan. And then you can see that the SaaS and AI service, OTT, metaverse, and blockchain. So the Korean government appears to be only regulating, but that's not the case. It is also trying to do a lot of things to provide support to the Korean businesses, like for example, international standardization and also diversification. And then now, what is digital economy? And also as we move toward the digital economy, then what would be the limitations, if any? And also some of them that are not yet satisfactory. Now, digital economy is the combination of all economic activities implemented on the ICT. And they say that 70% of all economic value to be created in the future will be on the digital. So it does have great potential, but then it also has such risks as social exclusion, wealth gap, and that is why in the future, the digital economy must be based on trust, meaning that there has to be higher transparency and the spirit of blockchain has to be there as the underlying value so that it can be fairly accepted by all the members of the society. Now then, what is Web3? Now Web3, I believe, it seems as if we are talking about the same thing over and over, but then now Web3, it's about transparency and anti-censorship, openness, and data ownership. Now based on these features, it can create a trust infrastructure, and based on this trust infrastructure, it can build and implement digital economy. So then the blockchain or the Web3 based big techs, so if there are such big techs to appear, then I believe that it will become a society where we will be able to predict the future with more accuracy. Now then let us look at where we are in terms of Web3. Now this is what it looks like. So the bubble is slowly going away. Now we see that some of the overvalued aspects of Web3 companies is now normalizing. Of course, it depends on each case, but then, so some of them have been highly overvalued, coming down. So now they are being valued at a normal range, as if it appears to be. And then another factor is now, whenever we talked about the blockchain, then talking about the concept, then we talk about the main net, and now we focus more on services. So in terms of the technological competition, then for us to have a business model, then we need to have core product competitiveness, meaning that we have to focus on improving the app or the US. It seems as if we are shifting in that direction. And also cooperation among the Web3 companies, Web3 players appears to become more and more brisk. So the same for SKT, but then many different companies are now becoming interested in Web3 players, the technology, looking into them, investing them, and also conducting projects with them. And then also market leaders used to be traders, but now service users are becoming more and more the leaders of the market. Now then looking at the Bitcoin market price, so then you see that in 2023 now it peaked, and then now today it more than doubled. And then now thanks to the regulation easing and also the rate hike easing, then it is set to take off again, which is the prediction by myself as well as many others. And this is about the invested Bitcoin number and the value. So you can see that it is now $2.3 billion in the second quarter of 2023. So it peaked, but then now you can see that the trading volume has increased slightly, but then the investment value has gone down a little bit. But then now in the US, it is still leading the blockchain ecosystem because about 43% of the completed startups are in the US, and about 45% of the VC capital has gone into the US blockchain startups. And now this is about the current state of DeFi, and just before coming here I looked at this and it is now 46 billion. So then with the DeFi, then you do the staking and then you go in, and then now it used to be so high here, it went down, but it is now on an upward trend again. And this graph, I believe that this is how you can see it. So now then in this graph, this is about the Web3 investment trend. Now, in the first quarter of 2021, then you can see that over 90% were in the tech company, so that is in the first quarter of 2020. But you can see that over time, the blue parts disappear, and then the green part increases, which is the financial services. And then later on, you see that the healthcare and others and retail continue to increase. What this means is that many of the tech companies or the startups that had been heavily tech focused is no longer so. They are now also linking with Web2 companies, and among the different industrial portfolio, they are also getting interested in the financial services as well as other sectors as well. And this is among the Fortune 100 companies. You see Citibank is the most active in terms of investment. And also when talking about Web3, then it would be amiss if we didn't talk about NFT. Of course, this is not the center of it, but then now I would like to show you the cases of Nike and Starbucks. Now, Nike, very smartly, wisely, I believe that is what they have done, meaning that they have acquired Artifact and also the Dot Swoosh platform. So they have launched the Dot Swoosh platform to monetize the NFT. So they acquired artifacts, and thanks to this, they were able to incur revenue of 13 trillion won. Then also with the Dot Swoosh platform, they were able to reach out to the younger generation as well. So Nike appears to be a very successful case. And likewise, Starbucks, we used to have the loyalty program based on mileage, and now they are using NFT to improve the customer experience and for the customers to feel more familiar with Starbucks and make Starbucks feel more accustomed to the customers. I believe that that is what the Starbucks NFT project is about. And then so you first do the airdrop, and then the outforce one. So then So it's only those who receive the airdrops who would have the rights, and then general execs, and then there would be the outforce one review, and then they would try to entice more users and more people based on this kind of scenario. And then also this is happening in Korea and also other countries, and that is about the CBDC and the STO. So if this is to be launched as a service, then of course it would take some time, but then the fact that the government has come up with this guideline itself is, I believe, highly meaningful. So then in terms of the STO, then the guideline was published in February 2023. And then for the CBDC, they are currently trying to monitor the use cases of CBDC. And this is also being jointly implemented by the BOK and the Financial Services Commission and the Financial Supervisory Commission. So then for the type 1 currency, type 2 currency, so starting with the currency that is the most similar to the existing deposit. So then the users and the financial customers will be able to use them with ease. So the government is currently making this preparation. Same thing for the STO. Starting with the token securities, so not only for the institutional investors, but then also the individual investors. In other words, the retail investors would also be able to invest in them starting sometime next year. So now then again, the market is still in the preparation stage. A lot of regulations are still in their way. Of course, the startups and the big techs are also getting ready, but then we are not hearing about any bonanza yet. Then when can there be a turnaround, and what can be the triggers for such a turnaround? Now, largely there would be 4. Now then, in terms of the criteria for predicting the market turning point, the monetary policy, regulatory clarity, mainnet stabilization, and metaverse resurgence. Now first, about the Fed's rate hike, easing, and in other words, so if the rate hike is easing, that means that there would be more money in the market. Then also the regulatory clarity, and also the DF center is more activated, and also if the metaverse market is more activated. So if we can have these 4 prerequisites, and I believe that they can be the signals for showing that the Web3 market is now moving in the direction where most people want. So if I may mention a bit more, then for example, if there is the Fed's rate cut and security purchases, then there could be loan rate fall and also the corporate funding cost to go down. Then from the portfolio, then for example, the business value and also the gold and also others, like for example, the portfolio is very much diversified, and then now when there is liquidity, then so if there is sufficient liquidity there, then they could also pay attention to other types of assets, meaning that it could also drive the asset value or sometimes even trigger inflation. And then second is about the regulation. Now, of course, for the regulatory authorities to deregulate everything is not going to be easy, but then we can see that they are slowly but surely moving ahead. So, for example, the securitization issues, so the Ripple and the Coinbase litigations, the judgments have been made, and you would know that when sold to institutional investors, they're securities, but not so when sold to general public. Then also, in terms of the digital asset related laws and regulations, the EU MiCA. So the fact that we are getting new regulations means that the uncertainties are being eliminated. So if you don't know if you're going to be regulated or not, then you would not be willing to invest. But then now if you know what to do and what not to do, then for an investor it would make things easier. And another is about the digital asset being included into the regulated investment market. So now this is very hot. So from some of the asset managers like BlackRock, now they have applied for ETF, the spot ETF using a Bitcoin. So now yes, the mainnet has to stabilize more so. Now the leading public mainnet, Ethereum, it is now evolving into 2.0, and the companies that are trying to utilize this, well, the gas fee is still too high. and also many of these other hurdles, now they have to be eliminated as much as possible, and they are being eliminated. So I believe that it is stabilizing more and more. So then for scalability and performance and also the transaction cost down or lowering, so we see that the improvement is being made, which is a good thing for us. Then now for the metaverse resurgence at the SK Telecom, so we also have embedded the wallet into the e-friend of the SKT. So thanks to this, then, well, it is done by the metaverse infrastructure. And by doing so, we are trying to absorb more of the existing customers into this. So the metaverse might be faltering now, but then once it becomes more popular again, then I believe that this application would also pick up pace. And now moving on to the Web3 ecosystem on the Web3 wallet and the apps. So then looking at the ecosystem, then at the top Web3 wallet and then the aggregator, so that is where we are focusing on. And then looking at the protocol like layer 1, then there are so many others who do great work. We do have the private mainnet, but then I would say that we are not strong enough, so we have put a stop to doing our business with the mainnet itself. So we have decided to focus more on the services. So for example, stocks or webs. So then utilizing the customer interface, then now the sk.com. So we have like 30 million customers for our SK Telecom communications. Then we are now trying to move some of them, many of them, to Web3 wallet services and others as well. Now then for the Web3 wallet, so we call this T wallet. And from our point of view, then from management of digital assets. So for example, if you go to the bank, then you know how many assets you have. So it has to play that function. It also has to be able to transfer the funds. So that is the role of the digital wallet. Then also utilizing Web3, you need to be able to log in without having the ID and password. So then the key wallet, the Web3 wallet, then in the Web3 TOS and Web3 Pass, so these two roles will have to be played by this wallet, not just for ourselves, but also for any wallet. We believe that that has to play this function. And then for the Web3 wallet, then what would be the customer needs? The wallet that customers want would be one that supports various digital assets linked to various apps, so everything. But then I believe that the most important is to be convenient. So many of them existing today are quite unfamiliar. So for them who want to make use of it, there is low accessibility. It appears to be a hurdle against their usage. So meaning that the customer's access point, you have to come up with the kind of UX that where you cannot tell the difference between Web3 and Web2. And then for the app, there are a lot of the apps that have already been launched. Of course, we are seeing the ranking, like 1, 2, 3, 4. But it seems as if the D app market is not large yet. But then now, when I meet up with the CEOs, then in the D app market, now compared to the Web2, now there are so many D apps, but then it seems as if they are not getting the recognition that they deserve. But then for the Web3 wallet, so if there is more pickup of the Web3 wallet, meaning that if more customers use it, then the D app market is also bound to expand. And then now the AI, then what kind of role can it play in Web3? I believe that it has been playing a very important role. So for example, the Web3 generative AI. So then like for example, the art NFT. So we have already been using the generative AI for the NFT, and also we have been using it in gaming. And also for the code generation, I mean, we have already been using it for smart contract. So Web3 and AI are not separate, but beneath the surface, they have already been working together. Then for the Web3 UX, if we are to improve this with generative AI, then it would make the customer contact point much better. So for the user's point of view, then for the Web2, so they are already used to the UI UX of the Web2. So if you can have something similar on Web3, because the customer don't have to know, they do not have to recognize whether this is Web2 or Web3. So we have launched the T-Wallet, and they don't have to know whether this is Web 2 or Web 3. It is not relevant. So just like we don't know the structure of the cloud, but we can still use the cloud, so it's the same thing. Web 3, we also need to have this kind of technological support to scale up the contact point with the customers and increase the pickup. So then, in our case, for our Web 3, we believe that it has to be invisible Web 3. And this case is about swapping, so either in text or in words. Then, so you say how much I want to exchange, and then now it would do the calculation and come up with the best exchange rate for me. So just an example that I wanted to show you. And then if we are moving on to the digital economy, then the front wheel, the Web3 with AI. So this has to lead the way, while the other blockchain related technologies have to follow and push together. And by doing so, Web3 would be more usable to the customers, and then also utilizing AI, I believe that this will make it easier for the customers to use it as well. Now, having said all that, then what is SKT doing to prepare for Web3? Now, this is what we think. Now, we have the network, and then perhaps by happenstance that now for the big techs, when they were coming up in Web 2, perhaps we were a step slower. So then we have been searching for a high value add market, and we have been trying to expand our business model. So for the SK Telecom AI company, and then also KT Digico, LGU Plus, they have the 4 platform strategy. But then when we look at the performance, then the top 3 telcos, now these telcos, so what they make from the conventional businesses is about 40-60%, so it's gone down quite a lot. And then the rest is being earned through digital transformation. So then in preparation for the Web3, now we had to, so they are all very actively moving on to Web3, building the Web3 ecosystem and so forth. So we were created in 2017, so the headquarters, to look into the adjacent markets and also to look into the blockchain infrastructure. So we have introduced the blockchain infrastructure, and then we also have started utilizing the DID. And then on top of it, the mobile driving license have been launched as well into the market. Then also what the telecom has, so for example, digital authentication and the smartphone payment system. I'm sure that many of you use them. So the pass market for personal authentication, and then the payment service. So then we are now about utilizing these services on Web3. Then also the Web3 ecosystem should be linked to them. So that is our plan for the Web3. So then the direction of the Web3 wallet is to be the hub of the Web3 ecosystem. So this is what we are thinking in terms of the Web3. So invisible Web3, connecting possibilities, bridging realities. Now what I mean by invisible is, I believe I have mentioned this several times, so the Web2's UX convenience has to be there, meaning that the customer do not have to know this is Web3, meaning that the service, the front line has to be our focus. And then the connecting possibilities, now this is about between the virtual and the real. So we need to connect them with the metaverse so that we can also be able to see and experience what is in the virtual space. And last is about the telecom. So with the telecom, as it sends over information to the outside chain, then it can also link to the outside world for financial cooperation. Now the T-Wallet, this is web-based wallet, so you don't need to download it, and they can be utilized with PC, mobile web. It can be embedded anywhere, and it is already embedded into our metaverse service, which is eFriend. eFriend MAU is already with millions, so globally it's got over like 400,000. So we launched it last month, and now we are looking forward to its further growth. And another is about the government's regulation, and that is about the KYC-based wallet. So that is one user, one wallet. So then, if there is So I believe that by doing so, there would be easier access to the finance sector. So for the nationals, they can authenticate with the pass application. For the non-Koreans, they can get their authentication through passport or driver's license or residence certificate. Another thing is now about this T-wallet. Now we have used the secure MPC, so technology secure MPC, but not only that, but for all the devices and the browsers, you have to use a different passwords. So even if you lose your password, it can be restored and will be safe against hacking. And of course, accessibility has been designed for the best ease. And on top of that, we have also started the NFT marketplace called Topport, and this is for the digital and the metaverse membership. And we are linking this with the eFriend to also sell or buy costumes or even lands on the online world. Now, this is my last slide. Now, as we open the NFT marketplace, then not only the online but also in the offline. Now, there is a lot of traffic in the Gangnam station. So we have all these media poles. So in the Gangnam station and then also in the Samsung-dong COEX, so around the Megabox theater. So on these media poles, we are also displaying our NFT artworks. So especially in COEX, then it is 100 meters long. So it's a 100-meter long signage. So then for the users who are not aware of Web3 at all, it is also immediately accessible to them, and it can be also sold or bought right on the spot by clicking. So our marketplace has been implemented in both online and offline. So I thought that the time given to me was 30 minutes. But then now they told me that I need to finish in 20 minutes and take questions. So I had to rush through my presentation. But now this is the gist. Now I made comparison with the US and the EU in terms of their GDP because I wanted to understand where it is coming from. And also the difference was being made by the US big techs. But then in the future, who is going to create such differences? I thought that is perhaps where the opportunities lie. And also for most businesses, I believe they would be blooming in finance and also for Web3 as well. So as regulations ease, if there are more players there, then I believe that there would be also much more development as well. So more than anything, if Web3 were to enter finance more than other sectors, then it would be quite advantageous. But then there are traditional banks, and then there are also big tech finance like Kakao and other online banks. And then also the third finance model, I believe, would be based on the Web3. Now then, at a time like this, not only in Korea but then also all over the world, what are we to do? What are we to do to prepare for it so that we can also repeat the glory that was enjoyed by the big techs for the Web3 service players, for them to also enjoy the glory of the big techs in Web2. And so I mentioned like Web3 wallet or the app or the ecosystem strategy. So I believe that those are some of the important components. And that concludes my presentation. Now I would like to entertain your questions. Thank you very much for the very informative presentation. So yes, that was that was seen from a very long perspective. So looking at the global market, followed by the Korean market, and then the strategy of SKT. So I apologize for not being able to give you enough time. So let me ask just one question. Could be simple, could be very complex. Now the Web3 is something that we are presuming so far, I believe. But then now for Web3, if it is actually implemented and if it is to become part of our lives, then from your perspective, Vice President, how long will that take? Well, Amazon was in the loss for quite a long time. Most of the startups, for them to be successful, then in the beginning they have to receive a lot of investment and just survive through the hard times. but they're not going to start seeing sales and revenues and profits from day one. So from that perspective, then it's been 7-8 years ago when we have been seeing quite a lot of startups and many of them have entered this field. But let me think. I would believe that it would take a few more years. But then how many more years? And how big players? And how many big players? Well, I believe that depends on what we do, how we cooperate with each other.